I know this because our principal, a stern, unamused man named Mr. Aldrich, happened to be taking a group of state legislators on a tour of 45 Elementary at the time, hopeful that we'd get more funding to at least re-roof the place so there wouldn't be doves nesting in every classroom ceiling and attracting hunters during season, which subsequently made it difficult to comprehend Miss Dupree over the shotgun blasts. Mr. Aldrich motioned for us to stop and then took our teacher outside the door. I made out, "See me in my office after school," and then Miss Dupree said, "My cookies came out funny. I didn't take any home ec classes in a South Carolina state-supported college." Compton held his shoulders almost to his ears and his eyebrows toward the dove's nest. Glenn Flack said, "I heard my daddy say those bad words one time to my mom." Miss Dupree walked back in slower than she normally moved. Her red and white polka dot skirt didn't swish. I think we're going to have to stop now, class. I think y'all did a wonderful job. But Mr. Aldrich says it's very important that we have no fun until 3 o'clock. It's officially quiet time. Y'all can pass out your cards to one another and come get 2 each of my cookies. But we can't make noise. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I didn't know at the time that presently we would have a new teacher who would start each day singing a hymn, that Miss Dupree would quit and never teach again. But I swear I studied her face and noticed the same thing I would later see on my own wife's face and on the faces of both men and women in a textile town gone bust during the Reagan and Bush administrations. I'm sorry, that's what happened to cotton mills in the South during that time. We tiptoed across our linoleum floor and handed out those "Be mine, I'm all yours, and you're special" non-folding cards. Y'all know what I'm talking about, those little cheap things? Shirley Ebo, the only black girl stuck in an otherwise non-integrated school, gave me a card that must have been a reject or a second. Instead of "Let's be friends," it read only "Let's fend." She hadn't signed it. I said, "Thanks, Shirley Ebo." She said, Does your name stand for something else, Mendel? Is it short for something?" I said, "I don't know. Doll. I doubt it." Compton came over and said, "My mom says my name means free, but she didn't want to name me that." Comp was my best friend from birth onward. In college, she would tell women that his name was short for complementary, compulsive, compatible, and complex. Shirley Ebo said, "My last name means something in Africa. I'm a warrior." I said, "Uh-huh," and took more cards from my classmates. Miss Dupree sat at her desk, opened the drawer, and stared down. I had completely forgotten to sign a card for her and had no other choice but to approach the desk and hand Miss Dupree what Shirley Ebo had given to me earlier. "Let's fend," my teacher said aloud. "That's funny, Mendel. Let's fend. I agree with that." And then she stood up, walked around her desk, took my face in her young hands, and kissed me on the forehead. When she hugged me, the side of my face wedged directly into her cleavage. My classmates let out an "ooh" in a way none of us could perform in music class. I blushed, almost cried, and then the bell rang. On my way out of school that day, I passed Mr. Aldrich's office. My teacher sat across from him, her face turned away. I stood there and watched the principal wave his arms. Then he leaned back in his chair and spread his feet on the desk. Miss Dupree stood up, pointed at him, then looked at me standing by the door. Years later, I would say that she blew a kiss, mouthed "thank you," and waved to me in a manner that meant for me to get away and keep going. Okay, there's that. Okay. Some of y'all probably want to know how to make $1 million writing stories. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you how to make $1 million. It is a little bit warm in here. No, I'm fine. No. That'd be just distracting. I get all. I can't do two things at one time. Stop it, Jeffrey. But that is the nicest thing a dean's ever done for me. I usually just run. Okay, here's a little essay called, this is nonfiction, maybe. How to write stories, lose weight, clean up the environment, and make $1 million. This plan will work if and only if the writer-to-be is, say, 25 years old and intends to live another 50 years, but it's fun to play even if you start at age 30 or 40. Maybe it'll give you the incentive to live past 90. Day 1. Wake up early and sit in front of the computer or open up a nice Mead composition notebook. It doesn't matter. I will assume that you know what a short story is. Basically a 5,000-word piece of fiction with a recognizable beginning, middle, and end that involves a protagonist trying to best an antagonist. There will be rising action, conflict, dialogue, and maybe even a beautiful lyrical passage shoved somewhere in the middle when you weren't quite sure where the story was headed. On the first day, put 2 characters in an uncomfortable situation. Maybe you're writing about the time you were 16 years old and buying condoms and your boyfriend or girlfriend's mother walked up behind you. That's pretty awkward if you ask me. This is fiction, though, so you need to make up some crap. Make the mother limp, too, for instance. Have her holding a package of bunion pads. Anyway, write 1,000 words on that first day. Now go out. This will work if and only if you live out in the country in a state that doesn't offer a nickel for cans, seeing as no one in those states throws nickels out of the open car truck windows, I doubt, like they do where I live in Dacusville, South Carolina. Go out with a plastic bag and pick up at least 50 aluminum cans. This might take as much as 1/4 mile of walking. Come back home and place the cans upright. Stomp on them. This will reduce space. Throw the cans in some kind of container with a top, a rubber garbage can, for instance. If you live in an apartment complex, make sure that your neighbors don't snoop around and steal your cans. Wait, you live in the country. You live in a place like Dacusville, South Carolina. Maybe I should have mentioned that you might be living in a trailer. Anyway, put up the cans. Start thinking about tomorrow. Day 2. Reread your first 1,000 words. Rewrite. If you chose to write in a notebook, type up the rewrite on a computer. I'm not going to mention this again. Make sure your characters' names didn't change somewhere in the middle. Pick right up where you left off and add another 1,000 words. Then go out and gather another 50 cans, which might take you as much as a half mile of walking. Stomp. Add to the first batch. Day 3. Reread your first 2,000 words, rewrite, write another 1,000. Go out and walk and retrieve 50 cans, which might take 3/4 of a mile. Don't forget to wash your hands when you get home. I should have mentioned that earlier, too. Stomp and add to the first 2 days' batch. Day 4. Reread your first 3,000 words. Rewrite. Write another 1,000 words. Go walk a mile and pick up 50 cans. Stomp them when you get home. Make a note to change the antagonist's name in your story because you don't want to get sued later on in life by people who don't have the tenacity to become famous, rich, skinny, and environmentally conscious in the old-fashioned, difficult way. Add your cans into the bin and realize that you've picked up 200 aluminum cans already. Good job. You're doing your part. If you want to celebrate, make sure to drink a beer out of a can so you can add it to your collection. Day 5. Reread your 4,000 words, rewrite, write another 1,000 words, finish up that first draft of your story. You've probably been thinking of possible titles while taking your aluminum can gathering walks, so make a decision. First off, ditch the first 2 or 3 titles that came into your mind. One of them will probably be something like The Lesson. It's been used. One of them might be Good Country People, seeing as you're happy about Good Country People throwing out their empty PBR cans. You can't use that title either. So settle on something like Captain of the Solitaire Team, because you've been thinking about how all those homeschool kids live in the area don't have sports teams or after-school activities. Okay, now go out, walk a good 1.25 miles down the 2-lane road, and get your 50 cans. Bring them home, stomp on them, and add to the rest.